Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Nick Swisher Show, episode 8. Man, I hope everybody had a killer weekend. I can tell you that I did. I just had my 12th wedding anniversary yesterday. It was electric. It was magical. We had an unbelievable time together, and I cannot thank my wife, Joanna, for being by my side for the last 12 years. It's been absolutely amazing. Love you so much, baby girl. Can't wait to continue to keep living life with you. Also had the ability and the opportunity to go to the match, right, which was amazing. It was a place called the Pelican here, right outside of Tampa, a little place called Bel Air. Obviously, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, and Jordan Spieth. What I could tell you was it felt like it was a spring training baseball game for golfers. It was so intimate. The guys were amazing, signing autographs. They brought lights in over the golf course, which I thought was absolutely great. Couldn't have been more happy for that. But it's crazy, dude. Like, even though I'm talking about all these amazing things, my phone keeps buzzing every 10, 15 seconds about all these new trades that are going down, all these new signs. So guess what we're doing today for episode 8? We're going to get back to grassroots, everybody. We're talking baseball today, and there's nobody better than my guy, Mark Feinsand, writer for MLB.com. He wrote for the New York Daily News. I mean, this guy's electric. He knows everything that's going on in the game of baseball. And I thought, you know what? Let's get back to grassroots. Let's bring my guy Mark in. Let's talk about all the things that happened in the winter meetings this past week. You know, I'm not going to tease this anymore. I'm not going to tease this episode anymore. Just roll that interview for everybody at home, Brett. A lot of cool things happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you I would bring him here, and we have him in the flesh. My guy, Mark Feinsand, right, was a beat writer for the New York Daily News for 10 years, up until his newest job that he has now as an executive reporter with MLB since March of 2017. This guy knows anything and everything of what's going on in the game of baseball. One of my favorite individuals, a friend of mine, a friend of the show. Big Mark, happy to have you here, brother. How you doing?
What's up, Swish? You know, once you left the Yankees, my days on the Yankee beat were numbered because it just wasn't that much fun anymore. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate you saying that, man, but I always have followed you since then. Obviously, from the moment we met when I signed with the Yankees, bro, you were one of the best people. You locked me into New York. You gave me an understanding of exactly how it was going to be, and you taught me a whole lot of things, bro. If it wasn't for you, I'm not sure my time in New York would have been as much fun.
Yeah, well, you certainly made those 4 years on the beat a lot more fun. And, you know, I just want to say one thing. Anybody who's listening to this podcast obviously knows who you are and what you're about. And a lot of people always say to me, they're like, he can't really be like that, right? Like, he can't always be up and energy and all the rest of it. And I always tell them the same story. In your first year with New York, you came in one day, you were in like a 2 for 30 slump. Like, you couldn't get out of your own way. You walked in, you were like, yo, what's up, bro? And you're dabbing me up and walk in. I walked over to your locker. I was like, Swish, I have a question. How are you this happy right now? You couldn't hit the broadside of a barn right now. And you're like, let me ask you a question. If I come in and I'm a jerk to everybody and I'm growling and I'm and I'm just mean to everybody, not nice, and I'm in a bad mood, am I gonna go 4 for 4 tonight? Because if I am, I'll do it. But I don't think that's how it's gonna happen. He's like, you said to me, you're like, I play for the New York Yankees. I make a good living playing baseball. I'm dating this great girl. Of course, I believe you just guys just celebrated another anniversary.
Yes,
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, brother.
And, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get another hit or two in my career. So I'm just going to be me. And I was like, wow, that is the best outlook I've ever heard from a player. And that was the day that I knew that the whole Swish vibe was really who you were. And I give you a lot of credit and a lot of props for just staying true to who you are over all these years and, you know, just being you.
Thank you, brother. It means the world to me, bro. I mean, obviously, our friendship has only gotten better and just elevated over the last decade of knowing each other. Obviously, your boys, your wife. I mean, a huge fan of the Feinsand family. But let's get into this, man. There's been a lot of things that have just shaken up. Obviously, the winter meetings just ended here in San Diego. I guess my first question that I would ask you, just getting into the baseball talk a little bit, obviously, a lot of huge signs this offseason so far. A lot of dollars, a lot of years have gone out. In your mind, per team, I mean, obviously, you're with Major League Baseball now, so that means you cover all 30 teams. In your opinion, what do you think has been the biggest signing so far this offseason?
I know it's so cliche to say it. I have to go with Aaron Judge just because not only was he the best player on the market, not only did he get the most money of anybody on the market, but he was the most important player for the team that signed him. If the Yankees hadn't signed Aaron Judge, I don't know where they were going to pivot. And I'm not sure Brian Cashman knew where they were going to pivot. We asked him that. I think it was the Monday of the winter meetings. We said, well, if you don't sign Judge, where then? And he's like, I don't know. Maybe we pivot to the shortstops and figure out something with the kids, or maybe we go hard after pitching. I don't think there was a necessary plan B in place if they didn't get Aaron Judge. And so to me, it was more important for the Yankees to bring him back than it was for any other team. The Mets lost to Grom, they pivoted to Verlander,
Right. Yep.
right? The shortstop market, there were 4 of them. So, the Phillies were going after Turner, they got him. But anybody else who was looking at Turner, you could pivot and go somewhere else. The Padres made a huge offer to trade Turner. They pivoted and went to Xander Bogaerts. So, I think the one thing with Aaron Judge was there was no plan B for the Yankees or for the Giants, really, because there was nobody else like Aaron Judge on the market. So I look at Judge as being the biggest signing. Do I know if that contract's going to be a good contract over 9 years? I have no idea. I mean, history tells you that the last year, 2, 3 of that deal may be a little rough. But at the same time, and I had people say to me, so you're going to pay this guy $40 million when he's 37, 38, 39. I said, you know what? By the time he's 37 years old, he probably won't even be one of the top 10 paid guys in the league. Because if you look back at Stanton's deal,
no idea. The money just keeps going up.
Look back at Stanton's deal, right? When he signed that $25 million a year and, till he's 37. And when the Yankees got him, everybody's, they're going to be paying him $25 million when he's 37 years old. He's not even one of the top 10 paid guys in the league now. His deal, you could probably trade his deal now if you wanted to. You could probably trade Mike Trout if you wanted to. And it doesn't look like such a bad deal. So, yes, right now, December of 2022, it looks a little crazy to be paying a guy $40 million when he's 37, 38, 39. By the time he gets there, it won't even be that much.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I definitely think there is no bigger player that means more to the logo, more to the fan base. I mean, listen, bro, by the time Judge leaves the Yankees, bro, he's going to have statues. Hopefully he's got a couple rings along to go with it. Literally, he has done everything in his power to make him one of the legends. I mean, we're talking up there with Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra. The biggest names in Yankee lore. He has put himself in contention to be one of those guys. And that was one of the things that I was nervous about. I'm thinking to myself, he goes to San Francisco. He tries to completely reinvent himself on the West Coast. It's hard to do that. I mean, we saw Robbie Cano. He left the New York Yankees, right? Went all the way up to Seattle, made a ton of money, I think 250 mil, if I'm not to be mistaken, but kind of fell off the face of the map when it came to that. I think a lot of players have tried to leave New York and create a different identity for themselves in other places, and it hasn't really worked out. So obviously, you know me, bro. I bleed pinstripes, bro. I'm rooting for the Yankees each and every day, and I could not be more happy to pull somebody like that because I think he made the right decision, and I think being able to have him is only going to help us working down the road.
See, I think when you look at Judge, you look at what he meant to them in their lineup, right? Last year, second half of the season, he was the only one hitting. Yeah. He's the only reason they even got to the playoffs because in the first half, everything was clicking for everybody. Carpenter gets hurt. Everybody starts slumping, or LeMahieu's hurt. And all of a sudden, they're limping to the finish line. Aaron Judge was the only reason that they held on there. Secondly, you look at what he means to the logo. And when I talk about that and what you just mentioned, the ticket office, the jersey sales, the Yes Network ratings. He's the guy. He's the guy people tune in or go to the ballpark to see. And if he's not there, I'm not sure what that team looked like next year. I agree about the face of the franchise thing, the Monument Park thing. Obviously, if he stays healthy and continues to put up numbers, he's going to be the captain, I think, with by the time the season starts, maybe at the press conference when they introduce him, whatever that may be. I think they name him captain. And I think he's taken over that baton from Jeter as the face of the franchise. When Jeter retired in 2014, people were wondering, who is that guy going to be? It wasn't Robbie Cano. He was gone. And when the Yankees let him go, I didn't think they were all that passionate about bringing him back. They made him an offer. It's a good offer, 7 years, $175 million. I would take that contract if somebody offered it to me. I'm sure you would as well.
Yes.
But they knew that he wanted 200 plus. Seattle comes in with the 240 and he goes there. And they pivoted to Ellsbury and Beltran and McCann and Tanaka, really good players. None of those guys were going to come in and be the face of the franchise going forward. So it was going to be, who's the next guy? They're going to sign Bryce Harper. They're going to sign Manny Machado. Well, as it turns out, they had Aaron Judge in the system. He came up at the end of 16, struggled badly, Then 17 obviously blew up, big rookie of the
Explode.
year, almost won the MVP. And it was like, okay, if you can stay healthy and keep putting up these numbers, there's your guy. So now they had the chance to bring him back. And I honestly can't remember the last time the Yankees had a homegrown player who hit free agency, who left when they wanted him back badly, right? Bernie Williams was the closest one. He almost went to the Red Sox in 1998. George Steinbrenner said, okay, I can't let this happen.
Can't let that happen.
Here's what you want. Come back, and good thing for them. He did, because they won a few more World Series with him. But the whole time, I didn't think Judge was going to leave, because when the Yankees have a guy like that, they keep them. And Cashman said something interesting that I hadn't really thought about. When you have your own guy hitting free agency, you're at a disadvantage to some extent, because the guy knows your organization. That's a great thing. The guy knows the players. He knows the staff, the support staff, everybody around. But you can't go after him and wine and dine him and roll out the red carpet and have Steph Curry calling him for recruiting calls, because he's already here. What are you going to do? You're going to go Daniel Jones call him to say, hey, New York's a great place. Yeah, he's played here for 7 years. He knows New York's a great place.
He knows.
Whereas the other teams can say, hey, here's everything we have to offer. And they take him out to the fancy restaurants in each city and all that. The Yankees didn't have that, because that's not what incumbent teams do. So I never thought he was going to leave until about 48 hours before he actually signed. There was a lot of sort of signs. There was that Time magazine story came out where he was kind of critical of how the whole thing went down in April. And for the first time, I was like, wow, he really might leave.
Bro,
but I give Hal Steinbrenner all the credit in the world. All the credit in the world. Brian Cashman said he was the Mariano Rivera of these negotiations. He came in and closed the deal. And you know what? I think the Yankees really would have regretted letting him go. And honestly, I think Judge would have regretted leaving, because not many people have the opportunity to be that guy with the Yankees. You look at the history of this team. Jeter was that guy from 96 to 2014. Don Mattingly was that guy for the 10, 12, 13 years before that. There are certain eras. There are certain guys. Aaron Judge is the guy now from 2017 until, well, at least about 2031 or 32.
Exactly.
And if all continues to go well for him, we'll be watching 99 get hung up in Monument Park someday.
100%. I can't wait to see that day. And hopefully I see him hanging a few banners over there at Yankee Stadium as well. Right. You're right, man. I do have to give a lot of love to Hal Steinbrenner as well. Just like you said, he came in, sealed the deal. I think he, above all else, knew how important Aaron was to our fan base. And I think that was one of the big reasons why he was like, this guy's not going anywhere. He means too much to us. We love him like our own son. And to be able to bring somebody like that with that sort of clout, that sort of literally physical presence. I mean, you can't let the best player in the game walk out your front door. Hal Steinbrenner, brother, nice work, man. Being able to seal that deal, that was huge.
Can we just put one thing to bed? I don't ever, and I'm speaking to you, Yankee fans, I don't ever want to hear the Hal Steinbrenner is not his father, he's cheap. That narrative's out.
Are you kidding? How the hell can you boo Hal Steinbrenner these days?
Narrative is out. 2009, he goes out and signs CeCe, AJ, and Teixeira, and trades for some other guy from the White Sox. I can't remember who. Then 2014, like I said, Ellsbury, Beltran, McCann, Tanaka, another $400-something million. 3 years ago, goes out and gives Garrett Cole $324 million. Now he ponies up $360 for Aaron Judge. I don't want to hear the Steinbrenner is cheap narrative anymore. It's just nonsense. They may not win the World Series, but it's not because the organization is cheap. And that with $360 million over 9 years, that's over. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Hey, Mark, you are so right, bro. It is funny to see at the end of every season how sometimes when things don't end your way, that all of a sudden, all the noise starts to come. All of a sudden, everybody starts to pop off about the decisions that were being made, the decisions weren't being made, and the whole nine. I'm thinking to myself, each and every year, Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman put one of the best teams together on paper each and every year. It's not their job to go out and get the job done. It's the player's job. But you cannot say, as a Yankee fan and as a fan of baseball, that Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman haven't given the New York Yankees an opportunity to win the World Series each and every single year they take the field. It's unbelievable that people think that they're not doing enough when they are going to the hip. They are literally going to their hip each and every year to bring over the best players. So in my mind, Hal Steinbrenner, best owner in the league. Brian Cashman, best general manager in the league. These dudes have done it in the biggest media market on the planet since they showed up and done a tremendous job. Yes, they've only won one World Series, or Hal has only won one World Series since he's taken over as owner. That's not going to be the last one. I can promise you that.
You
Man,
know what
I
the
could talk.
biggest you
Go
know
ahead.
the
What were you
biggest
going to say?
problem the biggest problem he's going to have going forward here is that the guy 10 miles to the left of him in Queens is spending about $350 million on his
Exactly. And
payroll,
that's
and
where.
now everybody's going to say, "Well, it's not Steve Cohen." I mean, really, let's simmer down, because what Steve Cohen is doing right now is so astronomical. And look,
Yes.
he wants to win. He has the money. He's playing by the rules. He's going to pay $75 million in luxury tax, and if he's happy to do that, great.
Yep.
But I mean, Hal used to say you don't need a $200 million payroll to win the World Series. Yet he's had a payroll over 200 and well over 200 for most of these years. You know, unfortunately for him, now he's got this guy across town who's going to outspend him by $100 million a year, and people are going to be like, "Well, why doesn't he spend like Steve Cohen?" Steve Cohen's doing something that, I mean, they named this tax the Steve Cohen tax, and he went, "Oh, you want to name it after me? Good, I'm going to blow right by it." So
let's talk a little bit about the New York Mets. Let's shift from the Bronx. Let's take it over there to Flushing. Let's talk about the Mets, Citi Field, the whole nine. Obviously, they have made more moves than anybody in the league up to this point so far. The Kodai Senga sign, the 5 for 75, the kid from Japan that most people might not know about, will know about this kid. I mean, 30 years old, right-handed pitcher, electric stuff, nasty split, 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Also signs Jose Quintana. Justin Verlander re-signs Edwin Diaz, signs Brandon Nimmo to an 8-year contract. I mean, come on. I mean, if you're thinking about the battle for New York, I mean, you're talking about putting two excellent teams on the field. Talk to me a little bit about what the Mets are doing right now.
Yeah, I thought the decision to let DeGrom go was the right one, because 5 years for him after pitching basically 100 innings in the last 2 years, and the health issues he's had. Look, when Jacob DeGrom is healthy, to me, he's still the best pitcher in baseball. And I don't even think it's close. Guy's just fire. He's just nasty. But 5 years for a guy who's had a lot of health issues in the last couple of years is a really risky proposition. To me, Verlander, even at 40, look what he did at 39 after not pitching for 2 years. I liked that for them better. It lines up with Scherzer and his 2 years that he has left. But for them to go out, re-sign Diaz, I know a lot of people say, "How are you giving a closer $20 million a year with what that guy did last year and what he means to that bullpen and what he means to the fan base?" I mean, the trumpets got a little annoying after a while, but the fans loved it, right? My friends who are Met fans, they were walking around humming it and singing it. Yes. Every time he came in, it was, I guess I'm spoiled because 14 years of watching Enter Sandman. To me, there's no better entrance in baseball. Hell's Bells out in San Diego is pretty cool too.
Trevor Hoffman was nasty too, bro.
But watching the way that Citi Field reacted when Diaz came in and trumpets and the whole thing, it was cool. So I think bringing him back was important because the rest of their bullpen also wasn't coming back. And then in terms of the rotation, they replaced Bassett with Senga. Now we don't know what Senga is going to be, but everybody who's seen him pitch and everybody who knows anything about him believes he's going to be a number two type of a starter. He's the number three there behind Verlander and Scherzer. So 100-mile-an-hour stuff. You mentioned the splitter, forkball, which is not something people see very often. I was told expect him to be kind of a souped-up version of Nathan Eovaldi, where he's got that big fastball, but with some other stuff that's really nasty. And they think he's going to be able to translate to the big leagues pretty well. They bring in Quintana off of a great year last year, big run with St. Louis, to be the number 4, replacing Taijuan Walker. Nimmo I thought was important because the center field market is just non-existent right now. And if they didn't bring him back, then it was probably moving Marte to center, finding a new right fielder. You're moving pieces around, knowing what Nimmo means to that lineup. Big on base guy, top of the lineup, good center fielder. Was it an overpay? Maybe a little in terms of the years. I mean, 8 years is a lot for a guy who's had trouble staying healthy, almost like DeGrom, but you look at it a little differently as a guy who runs out there every day, as opposed to just your arm is all that matters. And if this thing gets hurt, you're done. Yep. But I thought that was good. And then maybe my favorite under the radar move, and I swear I'm not just saying this because we both love him, David Robertson for 1 year, $10 million.
Huge.
D-Rob came back last year, and after not pitching for most of 21, he had that little cup of coffee with the Rays at the end of the year, coming off of Tommy John, and this was his first full year back from Tommy John. Pitched great for the Cubs, was a great deadline acquisition for the Phillies. Wore down a little bit at the end, but I think that's the first year off of Tommy John. I think they'll probably use him a little smarter, with the Mets knowing they have him for the full year. Billy Epler knows him, right? He
Yep.
had him in New York when he was with Cashman's assistant. So I like that signing to replace one of those late inning bullpen guys to help get the ball to Diaz. So I really like what the Mets have done. They took that, the extra money from not signing DeGrom, and they went out and made some really good investments. I really like the Senga signing. I think, 5 for 75. He's got the opt out after the third year. I thought he was going to get more personally, but that was a good signing for them.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I've been noticing in some of these contracts that have come out. Sean Manaea just signed with the San Francisco Giants, 2 for 25, but he got an opt out after the first year. What I've noticing is all of a sudden these opt outs are coming into play. I don't know if I ever had an opt out in any of my contracts before. I mean, obviously, I think this is great for the players. Manny Machado is actually one of the guys that I think might opt out after this season to see where he's going to end up going next year. I think that's why I think the Bogart sign for San Diego was a huge sign moving forward. But tell me a little bit about these opt outs right now and why they're coming into play more than they have been in the past.
Well, I think Scott Boras was one of the first agents to really utilize the opt-out. You think back to like J.D. Drew, I think was one of the first guys, and
who made a shitload of money in his career, bro.
Yes, he did. Oh, we can go blue on this podcast. I like it. I mean, think back, Alex Rodriguez. He signed his 10-year deal with Texas, in 2001, and had the opt-out where he could opt out of that contract, which he did. Right, he opted out when he was at the Yankees, ended up re-signing there. I feel like it's given teams, look, the opt-outs are only good for the players, right? Because if you play great, you're
opting out,
team
making
got
more money.
Good time out of you, but you're opting out to make more money. And if you're hurt or you play crappy, guess what? You're not going to opt out, and the team's stuck paying you. So the Manaea deal reminded me a lot of last year's deal with Carlos Rodon with the Giants. He signed a 2-year deal. I think it was like right around the same money, 24 million, with the opt-out after one.
I think it was two for 44, I think. 2 for 44.
Oh, you're right. He was up to 22 per year. My point is he signs the 2-year deal and had a good year, opted out, and there you go. So if Manaea has, bounces back and has a good year, he'll be back on the market again next year. So for some of these guys, I think it just gives them the freedom. I mean, we saw Carlos Correa last year sign the 3-year deal with the opt-out after each year. Had a good year, went back on the market this year. We'll see where he lands. I think the opt-out has become for teams probably don't love the opt-out. But
I guarantee you they don't. It just seems like you're just giving the player freedom to walk out the front door.
Correct. But if it's the only way you can get that player, then you're sort of at the mercy. And, it was interesting to me when Harper signed his deal with Philly that there was no opt-out in that deal. Tatis signed his extension with the Padres. There's no opt-out. Some of these very long deals, Judge, there's no opt-out there. But a guy like Machado, especially when he was looking at that deal, he got that big 10-year, $300 million deal. But at the time, he didn't know what San Diego was going to be, right? San Diego was sort of at the beginning of their process. And it gives him the option to go somewhere else. He's going to be 30, 31 years old next year and right in the prime. And when you see, if you had looked at it where 8 years ago, people were saying you're never going to see another 10-year deal again after Pujols and Cano and all these other contracts that just blew up in teams' faces. Well, apparently that's not the case anymore. So now if you're Manny and you're going to be 30 years old and you say, well, I just watched Xander Bogaerts get 11 years at 30 years old, and I watched Trey Turner get 11 years, and I watched, all these other guys get all these, Aaron Judge get a 9-year deal at 31. Why would I not opt out?
Exactly.
and
it's
try
the
to
right
get more
business
money?
move at the end of the day, if you think about it.
And maybe it's maybe he doesn't leave San Diego. Maybe he renegotiates with them and says, all right, instead of opting out, I want, that's what happened with CeCe when he was a free agent, when he could opt out of his deal with the Yankees. He and the Yankees talked, and they basically just amended his current deal, added another year at the end of it. So it doesn't mean that a guy is going to leave. A-Rod opted out with the Yankees and came back to the Yankees. So, for fans who say, great, he's going to opt out and go somewhere else, yeah, there's a chance that's going to happen. But just the same, if a guy likes where he is and thinks he can just better, most of these guys opt out. Nolan Arenado this year was one of the few exceptions of a guy who got traded at St. Louis, had the opt-out this year and didn't do it. And he, coming off of the year where he finished third in the MVP voting, or I think, he could have cashed that in for a lot more, but he was very happy where he was, and he didn't do it. So, to each his own, but obviously players having more options for themselves that's certainly the direction that we've headed in.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Find your mental help this holiday season at betterhelp.com/Swisher. This holiday season, check it. Do something special for a special person in your life. Guess who that special person is? It is you. Give yourself a gift to raise your spirits and not just for the day. The holiday can be a really tough time between managing family dynamics. Listen, I know about that. Racing from one thing to the next and braving the cold and dark weather. It's normal to feel down and a little depressed. Having someone to talk to about how you're feeling and what you can do about it is truly a gift. Listen, I started working with a psychologist my first year in New York, and I wish I would have done it a lot sooner. The fact that I had an understanding of who I was made me a better athlete, and I can promise you, the more you understand yourself, the better life that you're going to live. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, 100% online, and plus, check it, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. Listen, if things aren't working out, we can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It could not be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, and no endless searching for the right therapist. We will find you the best. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Swisher. One more time, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Swisher.
Hey everybody, Ryan Leaf here. We are about to drop 3 bonus episodes for my podcast, Bust, the Ryan Leaf Story, the most honest, transparent, and vulnerable podcast you will hear. Me in front of a microphone taking you through the start to the finish, right here on PodcastOne.
Yeah, so I started, you were talking about years on some of these contracts. Obviously you just talked about, Arenado signs that long year deal. Manny Machado signs that 10-year deal a couple years ago. I mean, this year, bro, like not only has the money gone out the door, the years are going out the door, right? I mean, Trey Turner, 11, Bogarts, 11, Brandon Nimmo, 8, Aaron Judge, 9. I mean, like, bro, we're not seeing like 2, 3, 4-year deals anymore. We're seeing teams sign these guys to multi-year deals. And like you were talking about, maybe 5, 10 years ago that you would say, wow, man, I don't think any team would be signing guys for 10-year plus, because we saw what happened in the Pujols deal. We saw what happened in the Robbie Cano deal. We saw what happened in some of these long-term decade deals that may not have worked out. I'm going to put you on the spot here. So far this offseason, we've seen a lot of big deals go down. So far in this offseason signing period, which one of those contracts do you think is going to pan out the most? Or I guess I should say, which one of those contracts do you think is going to live up to the overall years? Maybe not necessarily the money, because the money's going to always go up, but the overall years. Trey Turner, 11 years, Judgy, 9. I mean, who do you think is going to pan out the most?
I'm going to go with Judge, only because power doesn't go away with age. We watched David Ortiz at 30 home runs a year until he was 40 years old. Judge may wind up being a DH for the final 3 years of that deal, 4 years of that deal, even who knows what it's going to be. Once Stanton's off the books, that opens up a lot in terms of the DH role. Trey Turner, really athletic, great player. Is he going to keep that speed into his late 30s? The speed is such an important part of his game. Bogarts, will he be able to play shortstop for all those years? Will he move off the position somewhere else? I think it's fascinating that when Harper and Machado were free agents, they were both 26 years old. So you knew they were going to get 10-year deals. Bryce ended up getting a 13-year deal because Philly wanted to drag it out a little for AAV purposes, but he got the biggest deal at the time that had ever been signed in terms of total dollars. But when you're 25, 26, you say, okay, a 10-year deal takes him into the mid-30s.
That makes sense.
Now, do you know that Bryce Harper's deal had been the only free agent deal in the history of baseball longer than 10 years? We saw 2 signed this week. 2 11-year deals signed this week.
Exactly.
After one ever.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. I'm not saying Turner and Bogarts' deals aren't going to be good. Sure. I'm not saying those guys are going to be busts.
Just for conversation purposes.
But for conversation purposes, if I had to pick one, I think power is the thing that, that sort of plays deeper into your 30s than speed. And so I would pick Judge, but it's fascinating to see guys at 30 years old signing 11-year deals, taking them into their 40s, because that was the thing. I didn't think 10-year deals were dead because if you have a 20, Corey Seager last year was like 27, signed a 10-year deal. But when you're talking about a 29, 30, 31-year-old signing deals to 39, 40, 41, that is where I thought was history because of things like Cano, like Pujols. As a baseball fan, there was nothing I enjoyed more this year than watching Albert Pujols in second half.
Me too, bro. It was so much fun to watch.
He looked like after the last 3 years, you're like, God, this guy's going to get DFA'd and that's going to be the end of his career.
Yeah.
And the Angels got rid of him and he went to the Dodgers and, had some decent run there as a pinch hitter and sort of that whole T.O. Albert, everybody loved him as a leader on the team. And when he signed back with St. Louis this year, you're just thinking to yourself, like, God, I hope this doesn't end with like some sad press conference in June where they announced that they're DFAing him and he retires and he just sort of and in the first half, it looked like that's where it was headed. Then all of a sudden in the second half, he just exploded. And
but also too, Mark, I mean, you got to understand, like when you go back to an organization that like through and through, I mean, obviously he knows St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, that was where he came up as a puppy. They knew how to use him properly. I think that's one of the things that you got to know moving forward with some of these long contracts. You have to understand the human being, right? That's why I can agree with you on that Judge contract because power doesn't go anywhere. I also think if you look at Aaron's physical build over the last couple of years, he's not 280 pounds anymore. He might be in his 260s. Like he's learning how to let his body work the way that it should be. And he's learning how to play that 150, 155 games a year. That takes a minute to figure out because when you come up as a rookie, your hair's on fire. All you're trying to do is just get in the lineup every day. You're laying out for everything. You're running into the wall. You're doing all this stuff. But I think as he's grown, he has matured so much. He is having a better understanding of how his body works. And I think he's really realizing how to get himself ready to play a full 162 game season plus playoffs. Because if you think about it, man, he's almost in the playoffs every single year. So his health has gotten better. I think that was one of the things that I wanted to see. As a Yankee, I wanted to see that overall ability to play a full season. And man, come on, that 62 home run stretch. I mean, he was the one guy that was in there each and every day. And I think maybe come postseason time, maybe he was a little tired. I don't want to put that on him, but to be able to roll out 62 bombs in a season, bro, 20 more than anybody else. I mean, that's absolutely crazy to think about if you know.
I think he probably did wear down a little in the playoffs. And I don't think it was because he played so many games. When you're going through a chase like that, where you are the center of attention every single day, and every at bat is being cut in on national television, and every day at the end of the game, you're the one who they want to talk to, and your family's traveling with you, and it's just like, I mean, he was saying towards the end of the season, like he would hit a double, and the fans were booing because it didn't go over the wall.
Yeah,
that kind of pressure, it really can be. I mean, we've seen guys go for their 500th home run. We've seen guys go for 3,000 hits, and it wears on you. And the fact that it was at the end of the season, he had one day off, one game at the end of the year he sat out. Other than that, he played every day.
Yeah.
I think that wore on him. That said, you wanted to see him play 150 games, so did the Yankees. And that's why their offer before the season was $213.5 million. And then they paid him $360 because, this is a guy who's had some injury problems. Now, it's not the one thing I've always said about Judge. He's had injury problems, but they're not the lingering hamstring that comes up 3 times a year. He got hit by a pitch on his wrist and broke his wrist. He dove for a ball and broke ribs. Like these are sort of fluky injuries, not a guy who's necessarily injury prone or has that, that calf muscle that seems to come up every single year. And like you said, when you see Big Papi hitting bombs till he's 40 and Nelson Cruz hitting 30, 35, 40 home runs into his late 30s and early 40s, power translates. If you keep your body up and you do what you're doing, you can still be effective in your late 30s. And so, I think the fact that Judge has played 2 years in a row of without COVID in 2021, he would have probably played 150 games there as well. So I give him a lot of credit for recognizing what it takes to get on the field, changing what he has to change. And if he can continue to play 145 to 150 games a year, the Yankees are going to be very happy.
No doubt. I mean, what more can you ask for? Right? I mean, what more can you ask for than just getting him out on the field for 145, 150 games a year? I mean, that's plenty in my mind. I think that 162 game season is too long anyways, in my opinion. I think
we're done with Cal
back.
Ripken. You're not seeing that anymore.
That's what I'm saying, bro. And not only that, you're almost going to stop seeing the Hall of Fame guys move in because dudes aren't going to play 20 years anymore.
Right.
There's just not a whole lot of guys that are able to play the game for that long. So I want to move on to the next question a little bit. I want to play Monday morning quarterback a little bit. Obviously, a lot of the signs have already taken place. Is there one team that, in your opinion, missed the boat? Missed the opportunity to really bolster themselves? Obviously, for myself, one of the teams that comes into play is a San Francisco Giants. Obviously, they were at the top of everybody's list for Aaron Judge. I think they were in on a lot of other guys as well. I know the San Diego Padres could be a team that I thought also really, really made a lot of offers, made an offer to Judge for $400 million. He said no. Trey Turner said no. Obviously, going out and getting Bogarts, I think, was huge. But in your mind, was there a team that missed the boat? Was there a team that could have done more or could have gone to the hip a little more to get one of these huge superstars in our game?
Yeah, I can't go with the Padres only because they finally got somebody to take all that money in Bogarts. And, they also traded for Juan Soto like 5 months ago. So they're doing all right.
Exactly.
I think they're doing all right. To me, the Giants are certainly in that mix right now because they did try to get Judge, but they still could end up with Correa. They still could bring Rodon back. There are still ways for them. And I feel, who I feel worse for than anybody else in the last 2 weeks? Mitch Haniger. Because he's a really good player.
A great player.
He signed a deal with he's another guy who just can't stay on the field. He signed a deal with the Giants, and everybody's like, oh, that's great. What about Judge? Like, it was like, we don't care. Yeah. And the fact that they didn't sign Judge, they're like, well, we did get Mitch Haniger. And they're like, that's great. You didn't get Judge. So I feel bad for Mitch Haniger. He's being totally overlooked. Really good player, and I think he'll be good out there. I look at the Boston Red Sox as a team that, they could have signed Bogarts before. They could have extended him for $200 million. They didn't. They lowballed him a little bit. Their offer to him before he signed with the Padres was like $120 million shy of what the Padres offered him. And I'm not saying that it was smart and they should have gone 11 years or they should have gone 280. I think Bogarts got more than any of us thought. But the fact that they let him stay out there, they didn't try to really do something to bring him back, let him go out there and explore and find this monster deal from San Diego. They haven't done much. And in a division that they're in, that's not great, right?
No,
the Yankees haven't gotten better yet. They're the same team from last year, just without Tyone. So they may actually be a little worse than they were last year. They still need to go out, add another starter. Maybe Rodon ends up there. But the Rays are still really good. The Blue Jays are still really good.
And Baltimore's really good.
The Orioles are on the upward trajectory. So Boston needs to make some moves if they're going to try to compete in this division, whether it was getting Bogarts back, going out and getting Senga. I mean, they added Kenley Jansen. I like that move. They went out and got Yoshida, the hitter from Japan, who's a big on-base guy, not a power guy, but a big on-base guy. Like a 450 on-base percentage in Japan.
I love that OBP, bro. I love that OBP.
You do, but I think the Red Sox still need to do a little more. I thought the Cubs made a couple of interesting moves. Bellinger. Who's the other one they signed? My mind is fried at the moment.
Tyone. They signed JMO.
Jameson Tyone. There you go.
Of course.
So the Phillies have obviously been big movers with Turner and Taijuan Walker, adding on to a team that just made it to the World Series.
Yep.
But I think, the Giants certainly, I'm going to give them an incomplete. I'm not going to say they've missed the boat because I think there's obviously a lot of money still to spend there.
Sure.
It's a matter of whether they spend it. The Red Sox, to me, are a team that needs to do something to try to get themselves back in the mix in a really, really tough division.
Yeah, it's like my guy Gabe Kapler, absolutely love him. I mean, a lot of guys would love to go play for somebody like that. But also, too, when I think of the Boston Red Sox, this is not – kicking someone when they're down. But if I'm Rafael Devers, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is happening? Because I'm thinking as a Yankee fan, I'll take that cat. I'll take that cat as our third baseman any day of the year, any day of the week. I think moving forward, obviously with Kenley Jansen just signed over there with Boston, but that's kind of one sign out of anything. And even from the times that I was in, New York and in the AL East, it was either Boston was winning the division or they were finishing dead last. And it seems like that's kind of exactly what's happening. They're either going to put an unbelievable squad together and take the division, or it just seems like they're just going to throw their hands up and just, roll out a squad and see what they're capable of doing. Obviously Alex Cora is a tremendous manager and I love what he's been able to do over there culture-wise, but you got to have good players to be able to win games. And when you're looking at the overall talent of the Boston Red Sox, they need more pieces of that puzzle. obviously as Yankee fans, I want Boston to play well. I want them to be great because I really, really appreciate those rivalry games. And, moving forward, it's like, it's hard to see an organization of that sort of stature not putting their money where their mouth is and not going out and trying to get the best players in the game. Because if you want baseball to be good, you have to have the best teams playing well. You have to have New York playing well. You have to have Boston playing well. You want the Dodgers playing well. You want Houston playing well. You want all those teams playing well. Philly has started pushing themselves up there for a long time. Atlanta will be up there for a long time. Last question I have. In my mind, I think there's 3 stars that are still out there right now. Got a little Dansby Swanson action, got a little Carlos Correa action, and you got a Carlos Rodon action. And obviously Rodon opted himself out. In my mind, probably the best starter that's on the market right now. Do you have an idea of where you think he's going to go? I feel like there's been a lot of mystery teams that have popped out. St. Louis Cardinals have been a team that's been asking and trying to acquire him as well. But for someone like Rodon, wouldn't mind seeing him in a Yankee uniform, bro, yelling and screaming and bringing all that energy and emotion to the ballpark. I really appreciate that. In your mind, do you have a team where you think a guy like Rodon's going to end up?
So to me, the Yankees are the team that probably needs him the most. They did what they did with Judge, but like I just said, they haven't gotten better. They're not a better team than they were last year. They're not any closer to the Astros. Now, the Astros lost Verlander, but they have so much pitching. I'm not even sure that's going to matter.
Also signed Abreu, right? From the White Sox.
Right. So they're better. They're better offensively.
Yes.
And they lost Verlander, but there's a lot of pitching there. So the Yankees need to add another starter. They lost Tyone. They've got the kids coming up at shortstop and all that, but there's no big arm coming up.
There's no guarantees on those guys.
Sure. But there's no big arm coming up. There's no Severino in the system right now or somebody to come up and say, all right, we're going to give that guy a spot in the rotation. So Rodon to me is most needed by the Yankees. And after spending that money on Judge, it feels like 09. You got to, push them all in, push all the chips in.
You got some more money to spend. Let's spend.
Let's do it. And so, but that's not to say that he's going to wind up there. But the Yankees, I think, are a team that's going to be right at the top. St. Louis is another team that's certainly in the mix. San Francisco, like we said, has all this money to spend. Yep. He was their guy. They know him. There's some talk that he wants to go back to the East Coast. Who knows if that's true? I always feel like that's kind of overrated. Somebody comes in over the top with a bigger offer, then, I'm sure when you were a free agent, you weren't going, I just want to play in Cleveland. But, they came in with the best offer, and it was a good team, great manager. There were a lot of pluses there. But if another team, closer to wherever you wanted to, Tampa, somewhere near where you were living, came in, maybe. But I feel like the money always rules the day.
Always, bro.
Right. So there will be a lot of teams in a Rodon. I think Correa winds up. I think the Giants wind up with him just because I think they need him for that face of the franchise thing. And, they missed out on Judge. You can't just pivot to some sort of plan B's and C's.
Yeah,
you still
got to
get
a bigger name. Yeah, you got to get bigger.
You still need a guy to put up on the billboard to say, come see Carlos Correa and the Giants this year.
Yes.
Since Posey retired, they have, this year they didn't have that guy. The 107 win team went to an 81 win team really fast. And they're in a division, Dodgers, Padres, it's tough. So I think Correa winds up in San Francisco. Rodon, I'm going to say New York, St. Louis, or San Francisco. Swanson, to me, is the most interesting because if Correa goes to San Francisco, there are still 4 or 5 teams out there that are looking for shortstop help. All of a sudden, Dansby Swanson's in the driver's seat saying, well, great, let's get a bidding war going.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I'm the last man standing. Let's do this. And I think, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Padres are right now, they've got Bogarts, but there are 4 or 5 teams out there that could really use a shortstop. And it would not surprise me at all if Swanson ends up getting significantly more money than we all thought he would get at the beginning of the offseason because, the other 3 guys have signed and you look at what they've signed for. Not that, look, Swanson is the 4th of those 4 guys. I don't think anybody would argue that.
Right.
But 300 for Turner, 280 for Bogarts. I have to imagine that Correa is going to get 300 or more.
Sure.
Swanson's going to get $200 million if he's the last guy standing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anybody coming into the offseason thought that was going to be the case.
Nah, you know who's going to yank him? Freddie Freeman's going to bring him to LA, bro. Freddie's going to call him and be like, Dansby, let's go, big man. We had a blast in the ATL, bro. Let's take it over to LA. Let's do it.
Although I will say, and everybody keeps asking me, why aren't the Dodgers doing anything? I think the Dodgers are squirreling their nuts and saving up, putting them all in the back pocket because a year from now, there's a guy named Shohei Ohtani. You may have heard of him.
Exactly.
He's going to be a free agent. And by the way, Aaron Judge's deal is going to look like the biggest bargain in the world compared to
When
what
they sign
Ohtani's
the
going to get a
unicorn,
year from
bro.
now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, he legit could get a 10-year deal worth $500 million.
Well, yeah, because he's doing things in the game only Babe Ruth did, bro. I mean,
You're signing. Babe Ruth didn't even do what he's doing.
Yeah,
because
well,
Ruth,
I mean, true. He was the only
Ruth-
person that was able to at least somewhat compete with the Shohei Ohtani.
Ruth was a great pitcher, but didn't really hit. Then he had like 1 year where he kind of did both, and then he was a hitter.
And then he
didn't
just
pitch.
mashed.
He didn't do the like top 5 Cy Young, top 5 MVP thing in the same year.
I know.
Ohtani's doing
Shohei's
stuff
up there
that
every
none
year.
of us have ever seen, and so as long as he can stay healthy this year, and this is going to be a more important year for a player to stay healthy than anybody, including Judge in this past season.
So true, bro.
If Ohtani can stay healthy, keep striking out 14 guys per 9, and hit 35 bombs, he's going to get paid like we've never seen before.
So right, man. Mark, you're the man, dude. I can't thank you so. Oh, you got
I got
me?
one quick question for you. Something you
Okay,
just
I'm
talked
ready.
about. I was gonna put a pin in it and bring it back, but you talked about the Red Sox and how they either win the division or they finish last. Since 2004, they've won 4 World Series, and they finished last. I don't know exactly how many times. Let's say 4 times. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5. I'm not sure. The Yankees have had winning records every year for the last 30 years. They've made the playoffs like 27 of the last 30, whatever the number is. As a fan base or as a player, which would you rather have? Would you rather have the highs of the 4 rings and the lows of the 4 or 5 last place finishes? Or would you rather be competitive, be in the playoffs every year? They got 1 World Series in the last, since that 04. The Yankees have won, the Red Sox have 4,
Yeah.
but the Yankees have missed the playoffs a couple times in 80. I don't think they've won less than 85 games in a season.
Yep.
Which trajectory of those 2 would you rather have?
Hey, bro, this is such a tough call. It's such a tough question. I mean, listen, I appreciate the consistency of what the New York Yankees have done, right? They are at the top of the division every single year. And I think that, that mystique about being a New York Yankee is it's championship or bust. So I can see where the fans are a little upset by saying, hey, we haven't won since 2009. We're coming up on 13 seasons right now. It hasn't been accomplished. Obviously, the Boston Red Sox have been able to win some championships. So when you're putting it in that term, bro, I love the rings. But I know the New York
Fly
Yankees
forever, right?
I know. You're so right, bro. It's like, I love the rings. I will never forget our championship run. I will never forget that ring. I have it in the safe. I go and look at it at least once a month just to get those feelings back. But like you said, man, I mean, it's very hard because what do you want to do? Do you want to win a championship and then finish last place the next year? I just don't think that's in the Yankees vibe. So I think they've put themselves in a unbelievable position year in and year out. I think at the end of the season, health is a major concern. Need to be able to have that moving forward. But I think at the end of the day, man, it's only a matter of time until we can just bust through that and get ourselves another championship. Because like you said, I mean, it just kind of adds itself on, right? Seems like the pressure is more and more and more. And obviously Aaron Boone, I know he wants to get that World Series under his belt big time. That would be humongous for someone like Brian Cashman, being able to win a World Series with Joe Torre, being able to win a World Series with Joe Girardi, and then hopefully being able to win a World Series with Aaron Boone, I think would be absolutely electric. One of the best general managers we have, Hal Steinbrenner, his doing what he's doing, I think is absolutely fantastic. But I do like those rings, bro. I do love those rings.
I noticed in your background, you got that awesome painting of
see it?
The 2009 World Series, you guys winning and piling on the field. But I noticed in that little pile of books you got there over your shoulder, I don't see a copy of Mission 27. And I think
you're
we
so
need to
right,
remedy
bro.
that.
You're so right. What I have done is so far, all these books over here to my left have been for all the people we've had on the podcast so far. So guess what jumps up in here next week? Mission 27.
I may have to send you a copy of the franchise too, just to get
that
bad.
100%, man. 100%. You know I want all that love, bro. Mark, you are absolutely fucking amazing, bro. Thank you so much for your time today. Listen, man, from the Judge signing to the trends and opt-out clauses to all the years that went off the table these past few days, man. So happy we had you on here to talk about the biggest things that are coming out of the winter meetings. Love you so much, man. Love to the Feinsand family, brother. Continue to keep kicking ass, man, and we'll catch you soon, baby.
Thanks for having me on. Love to Joe and the girls. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Yes, sir. Obviously, we could talk all day long about the trades, the signings, and everything that happened over this past week at the winter meetings in San Diego. And like I said in the interview, there's no one that knows New York and baseball like my guy, Mark Feinsand, man. We were so happy to be able to have him on there. And also for all the baseball fans out there, man, keep an eye out for these huge signs. We got Dansby Swanson. We got Carlos Correa. We got Carlos Rodon. When these dudes sign, hit me up. Let me know what you think about all these moves, and let me know what you think about your team's chances in the 2023 World Series. Hope everybody's having an awesome week, man. Get yourself ready for the holidays. Get your presents done. Put your elf on the shelf, y'all. And like we say every week for the show, spread that love, everybody. We'll see you right here, same time, same place next week, y'all. Peace out.
Thank you.